Today we're at Maes y Grug. It's a special site of scientific interest owned by Wildground. It was a former colliery, but now it's a young deciduous woodland. We have ponds here and a marshy grassland. So we're here today to go and look at the signs of spring. And one of the most noticeable signs of spring is all the flowers we see coming up. So this is Cardamine pratensis. Its common name is cuckoo flower. You might also hear it called lady's smock. It's got these beautiful pink flowers. It's quite common on our sites around the ponds. It quite likes its feet wet, so you'll often find it in boggy or swampy areas like fens or the marshy grassland that we have here at Maes y Grug. This is one of my favourite marshy grassland plants because it's the flower which the orange-tipped butterfly lays its eggs on. From now we'll start seeing lots of orange-tipped butterflies on this site. Okay, so this is Centuria nigra, also known as common knapweed. These are last year's seed heads, and at the bottom here you've got the new leaves coming through. This is a really common plant, really common grassland plant, or common in woodland rides as well. It's a great plant because it's really high in nectar, so in the summer we'll have lots of butterflies on here, and the blues particularly love this plant. So this plant here is Allaria petiolata. So this is garlic mustard, and that's where its genus comes from, of Allaria, because it sounds like allium, which is garlic. This plant commonly used as like pestos or as a herb. The leaves are actually quite high in cyanide, but once the plant's chopped up, it's actually quite safe to eat. Orange-tipped butterflies, which I previously mentioned, will also lay on garlic mustard. It has got another name, which you might hear, which is Jack by the hedge, and that's because it's commonly found along hedgerows or roadside verges. Here is Vicaria verna, so commonly known as Lesser celadine, no relation to greater celadine. The leaves are heart-shaped, and they're often the first leaves you'll see coming through in woodlands. You find woodland flowers are usually the first to come up in spring because they need to flower before the trees have their leaves and they're shaded out. So this is usually one of the first. This flower is also pretty cool because it closes up at night or when it rains to protect the flower from damage. This delicate flower is Viola riviniana. There's a few confusion species with violets, but you know that the early dog violet, because this spur at the back is paler than the petals. In early dog violets, that's a lot darker. The other species you might confuse it with is sweet violet, but you'll find that common dog violet has no smell, and that's the big giveaway. This spur at the back is really interesting. So that's where the nectar is stored. So when bees visit this flower, they have to stick their tongues straight through the flower and to the back of this spur. Some species, like slugs, have figured out that this is where the nectar is, and they'll just come along and they'll chomp on this spur at the back. Unlike a lot of the other species we've talked about today, violets quite like to keep their feet dry, or at least common dog violets quite like to keep their feet dry. So they are found in all soils, but we can tell that this part of the reserve is slightly drier than the marshy grassland behind us. So this plant here is Primula vera. It's also known as cowslip, which is a variation on the word cowslop. So these were traditionally found in farmland, so pastures typically grazed by cows. Because traditional farming practices have changed, this plant is declining. So this plant is heterostylous, which means there are two different types of plants. So this is an L-morph, which has the stigma visible at the top, and you can't see any anthers. The S-morph, you can see the anthers, and that just prevents the plant from self-fertilising. So you need an equal amount of S and L morphs in a population for the population to be viable. There are lots of studies being conducted and surveys at the moment as to how many S morphs and how many L morphs are in each population to try and check if populations of cowslips are stable.